for that. 2020 lottery funds. We discussed that before you go to the consent agenda.
Okay. So I know that it has been the practice, or it has been stated by the county commissioners that when we asked for the quarter of a penny raise, I think it was for especially for 2016, I think on the on the ballot for 2016, and there wasn't the support because they said they cannot commit future boards to support the tax or to direct the tax towards education. I have been asking about this every year as to if the commissioners are refusing to commit and hold liable their boards, why do, without any conversation, we vote to turn over 100% of our lottery funds to the commissioners on an agreement that I have not received? I don't think any new board member has received, and I don't have any knowledge of what those conversations were, that we just signed those over without any conversation. So I'm needing information as to how, and that we make a decision, just automatically vote to turn over the money every year. And there has not been any dialogue in the past. And I would like to have dialogue as to why, if they don't commit funding for us every year, why are we committing funding that we receive rightfully from the state over to them?
Did you hear that? Angie?
So, you're right, conversation took place many boards ago, about the agreement.
It's not picking up.
It's not picking up. I'll go stand.
Thank you, Dr. Henry.
So you're right. There was an agreement, several boards, both on the commissioner side and the Board of Education side, that these dollars would be used for debt service. Now, to make it clear, these dollars come to the county because the county is responsible for construction of school facilities. So these dollars are put in an account in the name of the county, not of the school board. Mm-hmm. So the county submits the application. It requires a Board of Education approval.
Okay. And so in return, but the reason why we're kind of, I don't know, voluntold or the agreement was established is because the commissioners have not raised taxes. This goes towards the debt service from the 2008 bond. And I think there's relation to a bond that included, I think, GTCC, and from like 93. I think there's a total of $90 million that the commissioners repay towards the bond every year. And part of that funding is the $4 million or average we get, or is sent to them with our name on it from the state. Is that accurate?
So can you clarify that question? I believe I missed some words in there.
Okay, so from as I understand it, with the County Board of Commissioners, they repay the bonds somewhere between 70 and $80 million a year. Mm-hmm. This 4.7, which we've received roughly about at least $4.5 million every year since I've been on the board, is a part of that total that's used to repay it, because that is how they avoided raising taxes to handle the cost. And so we contribute to our own repayment. And I would like to know the details of the agreement, because we are in this external struggle, for funding and for the, not getting funded from the capital outlay, as well as struggling to get funding. I don't see, by turning over 4.75, where that comes back as a surplus or in a response to the agreement. Was this agreement in writing or?
No, so this was not a formal agreement. There was nothing in writing. There was nothing signed. It was just a verbal agreement between the two boards. And it's just continued since the initial year that it was first approved.
Okay, so.
When can you clarify when that was?
For the agreement, I don't have any. I've been asking for documentation, so there's no documentation, so that's why I don't have it. So then, do you estimate when the agreement was?
We can go back and check. I mean, it's been. I think we received maybe 2 years of funding of these dollars before we started utilizing them for debt service. We didn't receive a lot of them.
Okay.
So I'm thinking the lottery passed in 2000. 2000, yeah, somewhere around there. So,
Over a
shortly after, we started getting the proceeds from that. Like I said, we got at least 1 year, possibly 2. I can go back and look. And then we started using it for debt service.
What are the ramifications if we don't?
Hold on, Winston, I'm sorry. It's Anita and then Dianne and you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anita's next.
I'm sorry.
Is there a balance left that we owe? We owe?
We owe for,
Does this go on indefinitely, or at some point in time will it end? And we will keep the lottery proceeds?
so, I mean, clearly that would be something that we would work with the commissioners on. As long as they've got debt and they're got debt scheduled out for, I think, the next 15 to 20 years, they potentially could use these dollars to service that debt. And then if they issue any additional, bonds, if there are additional bonds issued, then again, these dollars, could be used to service that debt as well.
Dianne?
Is it possible for us just to get a running tally of what we have paid and what is still owed, so that we can at least see? I mean, you know, if you're paying off a car, you can call and ask, how much do I still owe? I think this was asked last year, and I think it's fair for us to know, you know, what was initially paid that we got. Then whenever this deal was made, then we started paying on debt service. Then there ought to be some numbers somewhere that show what that is. No?
So here's what I hear you asking for. You're asking for the balance that the county owns on school debt specific to Guilford County schools. What's the balance of that debt?
Whatever the $4.7 million has been going to.
Right.
And then if you could give us, if we've been paying $4.7 million since 2010, then that means that we have paid out almost a little over $40 million. Is that correct?
Well, it's been more than that, because remember, until when the legislature capped lottery proceeds at 100 million, before that we were getting the $10 to $11 million amount. So, but yes, I hear your question. We can certainly get the total of all those.
Okay, because I think, Madam Superintendent, that, you know, I brought up is that if we're paying down the debt, then if we don't owe as much as we used to owe, is it a possibility to go back, since we don't know who made the deal, to make another deal that doesn't penalize us, to have even 20% of that coming to us, because we have been paying down this debt for almost 10 years. I mean, there ought to be some kind of flexibility, because we need that money. I mean, you know, even if it's only, $900,000 to $1 million, it would help us towards, but I have to put the caveat in there that we cannot be penalized, though, by what we're asking for capital improvement. Is that a reasonable?
It's possible if that's the will of the board.
Thank you.
Winston?
Yeah, I mean, I get questions from constituents all the time, where's the lottery money go? And I'd like the county commissioners allocate it for debt service. But that's a joint agreement, is what I'm hearing you say, that was entered into by this board. And so I think it's a fair question in terms of what's, you know, a dialogue with them that clarifies that. I am curious about what the ramifications are if we don't vote for it tonight. I mean, there could be political ramifications, I understand that. It's a political process in terms of how we negotiate dollars. But what are the ramifications if we don't pass this now? And at some point, it has to be jointly agreed upon, is what I hear you saying, right? The commissioners and the Board of Ed have to jointly allocate the dollars.
Right, and the Board of Commissioners have already done that. They voted in their August meeting to approve this application. So if it's not approved this evening, I don't think there are no significant ramifications, because this is for the 2019-20 lottery proceeds, which are coming in now. They don't have them yet, so they won't have the full funding for that until we get closer to the end of the year. So they're estimating what the amount's gonna be available for the 4.875 million. And then they draw it down, the county draws it from the account that's in their name. I don't know with what frequency they do, but they can't draw it down until the proceeds are placed in there, by the lottery commission. So there are no significant ramifications that I'm aware of if this doesn't get approved this evening.
So I didn't have that full understanding before now, so I too have concerns about putting that on the table with the broader conversation with the commissioners. They certainly have put things on the table with us in terms of how they draw down bond dollars or how they choose to allocate bond dollars for different projects or for design and not construction, so I think I appreciate the clarification.
Linda, and then Byron.
All right, you said this money will be available to the county commissioners when?
As it's deposited throughout the year, as the bonds proceed, the proceeds from the bond dollars are made available.
Do we believe it's part of their current budget?
Yes, I do believe
All
it's
right,
part of the
so
current
the
1920 budget.
ramification would be is they've already included this in their current budget, and we would now be changing that.
So that would be the ramification of not approving it ever, but that's not, they're not approving it tonight is not gonna create that concern.
We're currently, and there's been a lot of discussion about moving forward with another bond for 2020. And, you know, you said they're paying back 90 million a year on these bonds?
It has been as high, I think their highest, debt service year was either last year or the year before, and it was around $86 million.
All right, what's how much?
Around 86 million.
86 million. So do we believe that the 4.7 million is truly stopping them from raising taxes?
Well, I mean, that's less than a penny on the tax rate, or right around a penny on the tax rate. So I don't know that they would resolve. I just don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do think we need to think about the fact that we want to move forward with a bond next year, which we will need their approval for. We did make a, agreement, and I believe it was back in 2008 when we did the $465 million bond, which all that money went to the school system. I just want to make sure if we don't move this forward tonight, that we're not impacting, number one, their budget. Number two, our prospects for what we can ask for in 2020 as far as a bond, since we made a deal. I have no problem with going back for discussion to get clarification and get a situation, because it is just kind of like floating out there what it is. But I just think we need to be cautious moving forward at this time when we want to do a 2020 bond.
Before Byron goes, I was just looking up something that says here, because I don't remember that being a joint decision. I think I remember being a little unhappy about that decision. But it says here that the North Carolina Education Lottery revenues are also used to fund school construction in the state. These funds go directly to Guilford County, not Guilford County Schools. The Board of County Commissioners has decided to use more than $54 million in lottery funds to pay down debt on voter-approved school construction bonds rather than fund new projects. So I think if we can look at this a little more to see exactly how that happened, and if there was a set amount that this was going towards, that would be helpful to have that additional information. Byron?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we table this item and that we direct the chair of our board with the superintendent and our attorney to have discussions with the commissioner's attorney, their chair, and their city manager to construct an MOU that's relative for 1 calendar year, or as to get a breakdown of what exactly, you know, including the data has already been requested from board members. What do we owe? What does this go towards? And what are we getting out of it to benefit children, since no one can remember exactly what we agreed to.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that. I have a question.
Brian?
Okay, Madam Attorney, would it be appropriate to have an MOU, considering, this is not like a contract or a service, or would it just be that there needs to be a discussion as far as?
You actually need to approve it in some fashion. So whether it's, motion, memo, that you approve as a group, some way or another, my recollection is we have to choose that. So it has to be in some fashion. It could be a motion, it could be a memo, it could be anything that you all endorse and somebody signs and we have for the. So the actual form of how you come to that agreement, could be done. But even in that, you would require a vote, so you're voting on this.
Anita?
Have we researched the minutes? Is there anything we have not, or there is nothing in there? Okay.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Diane?
Then I would suggest that it not be a MOU at this point, that it just be, the opportunity to, research, but I mean, it's his motion, but I just would not go that far with the motion at this point.
Call for the vote.
Because we haven't done the research to find out exactly when, what, when, who, and where. And so I wouldn't do that at this point. I would just, direct us to have the conversation, find out what the information is, and then decide what would be the appropriate, in particular, since, Ms. Henry said that, not voting on it tonight would not impact immediately. So we're talking about one more month, perhaps.
And do you want to make a substitute motion then?
I'm gonna call for the
vote.
All right, so we have
I'll
a,
make a substitute motion.
okay.
I'd like to take time to, before we approve or disapprove it, to take a minute to have some research and discussion with the county commissioners on what the situation is.
Okay, comment.
Hold on, is there a second?
No.
Second.
There's a second.
Our discussion.
No, I just want to get clarification. We don't have anything in writing.
Right.
That we know. So the MOU would actually put something in writing going forward. And either way, we would have to approve the MOU. Am I correct?
It is for them to bring it back.
To bring
the
it back.
respective
So
boards.
they are going to do the research. She just read what happened. So it's obvious that we have something in writing, but not an agreement between the county commissioners and the board. So I definitely would like for his motion to stand, because I do think it's time to put something in writing so that we don't have to go back and forth whether we have to research this. If you have an MOU, then we know what the agreement is and everyone is clear.
So since the money goes directly to the county, they don't need to ask us if we agree with that because it goes to the county.
It
They
is.
do?
You have to sign the application.
We have to sign the release of it.
The use.
The use of it.
Agree on the use.
There was a statute passed shortly
Yeah,
after
it's,
the lottery was approved.
yeah.
The bond was approved. It said that it was permissible to use bond proceeds, lottery proceeds, to retire debt if the parties agree. And so that's the piece that
Yeah.
went into place after the initial, lottery in place, 8 years later, a couple years later.
When did we agree?
And it has just been this sort of chat from then on, and I think that's all we'll find, but we'll find out.
Okay. So, there's a, Byron?
And I just wanted to add that not every school board district in North Carolina has this agreement with their commissioners. Some of the largest don't commit their lottery dollars for bond repayment, and the commissioners still support, and in many cases, spend more per pupil than we currently have in Guilford. I'm just asking that we direct the leadership of, that's on this dais, including our attorney, to meet, have the conversation, figure out what's needed, what we owe, and then bring it back. So really, this is a parallel to the current motion that I placed before. And so I feel that my motion hits what everyone has already stated. But we can present it to a vote, but that's what I'm asking, getting into an MOU I don't think there are any ramifications or this is going to greatly upset the commissioners. I feel that we are in a different age with the county commissioners where we have done very well so far in establishing trust and transparency. And to continue with that, since they will not commit a sales tax to their future boards, then it should be indicative upon us to say, we need to have ongoing and yearly conversation. That's why it's brought back to us every year, because each board may feel differently, and we have at least 4 new board members, and and there's no history relative to research and get a concrete understanding. And so I would hope that the substitute motion is retracted, but if not, then we can bring it to a vote.
All right, so we're voting on the substitute motion. All those in favor say aye.
So can someone repeat the substitute motion?
Linda, can you repeat your motion that you wanted
I
to?
basically would prefer to have an open dialogue with the county commissioners about moving forward with a possibility of what type of written document would be, agreed upon between both, units instead of, deciding by this board alone that this is the way to handle this situation. So I would like to have an open discussion first with some research and have a meeting and then move forward about, yes, we need to have this documented, I would like them to be a part of that conversation before stating
And what was the original motion?
to do an MOU.
To
No,
meet
it
and
wasn't.
discuss.
No, my original motion was for the superintendent, the chair of our board, the attorney to meet with the city manager, their chair, and their attorney to discuss the history and to come to a proposal of terms to bring back for each board to respectfully to vote and agree on MOU. The same process with
Yeah, that's what she said. All right, so the original motion is on the back. Seconded.
absolutely original to bring it back to us to review.
Now,
Yeah, it includes that.
Yeah.
all right,
Well, I think it includes that.
It includes that.
All those in favor say aye.
all right.
No, she withdrew the substitute motion.
Oh, she withdrew. Thank you, Linda.
I'm sorry. So the original motion that Byron, made is what we're voting on.
Which states, state it one more time.
Okay,
Could you repeat the motion?
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say.
So the motion is for the superintendent, the chair, myself, and our attorney, Jill Wilson, to meet with the county manager, their attorney, and their board chair to discuss the history, to pull the documents relating to the decisions around how the lottery funds have been dispersed, and then to come up with a joint agreement that both boards can take back for review, discussion, and approval.
Okay.
And what happens with this money in between now and that time?
I think it's tabled for now.
it sits in the account.
So we're effectively tabling this, what?
For 1 month, at least.
Well, hopefully with schedules, I don't know
Well,
how.
as soon as possible. We don't know what the schedules are with the county commissioners. As soon as possible.
I'll accept the friendly amendment to add as soon as possible.
Okay. So do you have an understanding, Pat?
Yes, I just
Okay.
wanted to be clear.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor, raise your hands.
The original motion.
Any opposed? Pat, how do you vote?
I'm in the affirmative.
All right, so that passes unanimously.